I've spent decades studying how millionaires think. Not occasionally, but every single day. And I've discovered something remarkable. The difference between a millionaire and an average person isn't their income. It's what they think about money when they wake up in the morning. It's the internal dialogue that runs through their head constantly. It's the questions they ask themselves automatically. Most people never realize that their thoughts about money are literally creating their financial reality. You think broke thoughts, you make broke decisions. You think wealthy thoughts, you make wealthy decisions. Today, I'm going to reveal exactly what millionaires think about every single day. And here's what's fascinating. Once you understand these thoughts, you can start thinking them too. You don't need to wait until you're wealthy to think like a millionaire. You can start today. In fact, thinking like a millionaire is the prerequisite to becoming one. Not the result, the prerequisite. By the end of this video, you'll understand the exact mental framework that separates the wealthy from everyone else. And more importantly, you'll know which thoughts to practice starting today that will compound into a completely different financial reality. The first thought that runs through a millionaire's mind every single day is this: how can I create value? Not how can I get money? Not how can I make more sales? But specifically, how can I create value for other people? This is the foundational thought. Everything else builds on this. When a millionaire wakes up, before they check their phone, before they have coffee, somewhere in their mind is this question: what value can I create today that people will pay for? This thought shapes their entire day. It shapes their decisions. It shapes what they pay attention to. A poor person wakes up thinking, how can I get money? Or how am I going to pay my bills? Or I wish I had more money. These are scarcity-based thoughts. They're reactive. But a millionaire is thinking about value creation, which is abundance-based. It's proactive. Here's what's crucial to understand. When you're focused on creating value, money becomes a natural byproduct. You're not chasing money. Money is attracted to value creation. A struggling entrepreneur tries to make sales. A millionaire entrepreneur focuses on creating a product so valuable that people beg to buy it. Same industry. Opposite mindset. The struggling entrepreneur is thinking, how do I convince people to buy? The millionaire is thinking, how do I create something so valuable they can't resist? Can you feel the difference? One is manipulative. One is service-oriented. One creates resentment. One creates loyalty. One burns out your energy. One energizes you. This is why millionaires don't feel exhausted by their work. They're not trying to force sales. They're solving problems. They're creating value. Money follows naturally. A millionaire in any field is asking, what problem am I solving? How can I solve it better than anyone else? What value am I creating? A poor person in the same field is asking, how much can I charge? How do I make this easy? How do I minimize effort? Can you see how these questions lead to completely different outcomes? Value creation requires effort. It requires thinking about the customer. It requires innovation, but it creates sustainable income. Minimal effort creates minimal income. The millionaire mindset understands this automatically. They don't have to be convinced. They live this principle every day. The second thought that runs through a millionaire's mind constantly is this: what is the long-term consequence of this decision? Poor people think short-term. Will this feel good today? Will this solve my immediate problem? What's the quickest fix? Millionaires think long term. What will this look like in 5 years? What will this look like in 20 years? Am I building or am I destroying? This thought is running in the background constantly. When a millionaire considers a purchase, they don't just think about the immediate gratification. They think about the long-term consequence. Should I buy this expensive car? Long-term consequence. I'm paying interest payments for 6 years. I'm paying higher insurance. I'm depreciating rapidly. Net long-term consequence. Negative. Should I invest in this training? Long-term consequence. I'm developing skills that increase my income for 30 years. Net long-term consequence positive. Should I eat healthy today? Long-term consequence. In 20 years, my health is better, my energy is higher, my medical costs are lower. Net long-term consequence massive positive. Should I skip this opportunity to invest? Long-term consequence. In 20 years, I've missed compound growth on $10,000. That's $200,000 plus in lost wealth. Net long-term consequence, devastating negative. A poor person doesn't think this way. They're focused on immediate consequences. This purchase makes me happy today, end of analysis. But a millionaire extends their thinking 20, 30 years into the future. And this changes every decision. This is why millionaires save when they don't feel like saving. Because they're thinking about the long-term consequence. This is why millionaires exercise when they don't feel like exercising. Because they're thinking about the long-term consequence. This is why millionaires study when they don't feel like studying. Because they're thinking about the long-term consequence. Every single decision gets filtered through this lens. What is the long-term consequence? And this one thought, practiced consistently, creates dramatically different outcomes. A person who asks this question 1,000 times per year will make fundamentally different decisions than someone who never asks it. And 1,000 decisions over 30 years, each optimized for long-term consequence, creates a completely different life. The third thought that millionaires think about constantly is this: what am I optimizing for? This is subtle, but it's incredibly powerful. Most people never explicitly ask this question. They just drift through life optimizing for whatever feels right in the moment. A millionaire asks, what am I optimizing for? And they pick consciously. Some millionaires optimize for freedom. Some optimize for impact. Some optimize for growth. Some optimize for security. But they pick consciously. And then every decision gets filtered through that lens. A person optimizing for freedom makes completely different choices than a person optimizing for security. A person optimizing for impact makes different choices than a person optimizing for income. Let me give you a concrete example. Two people want to start businesses. Person A is optimizing for income. Person B is optimizing for freedom. Person A builds a scalable software company. It makes more money, but it requires constant attention. Person B builds a rental portfolio. It makes less money, but it doesn't require daily work. Same people. Different optimizations, different outcomes. A millionaire asked, what am I optimizing for? And then they design their life around that answer. They don't just drift. They design. They decide. They execute. Most people never even ask this question. They're not optimizing for anything specific. They're just doing what feels right. But a millionaire has asked this question, and they know the answer. And that changes everything. Here's what's crucial. The question isn't whether you're optimizing for something. You always are. The question is whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously. An unconscious optimization might be optimize for immediate pleasure. That leads to debt and poor health and no wealth. A conscious optimization might be optimize for long-term freedom. That leads to delayed gratification and smart choices and eventually wealth. The millionaire mindset asks this question regularly. What am I optimizing for right now? Is it still the right optimization? Do I need to adjust? This conscious reflection creates different outcomes than unconscious drifting. The fourth thought that runs through a millionaire's mind constantly is this: what am I compounding? Millionaires understand compound interest deeply, but more importantly, they understand that everything compounds. Your skills compound, your relationships compound, your reputation compounds, your systems compound, your mistakes compound, your good habits compound, your bad habits compound, everything compounds. So millionaires ask, what am I compounding right now? Is it positive or negative? When a millionaire makes a decision, they don't just think about the immediate consequence, they think about the compounding consequence. If I read one book this year, that's one book. If I read one book every year for 30 years, that's 30 books. But more importantly, the knowledge from those books compounds. I'm not just 30 times smarter. I'm exponentially smarter because each book builds on the previous knowledge. If I exercise for one day, that's one workout. But if I exercise every day for 30 years, my health compounds. I'm not just 30 times healthier. I'm exponentially healthier because each workout builds on previous fitness. If I save $100 this month, that's $100. But if I save $100 every month for 30 years at 10% returns, that compounds into $575,000. If I make one bad financial decision, that's a mistake. But if I make one bad financial decision every month for 30 years, I've made 360 mistakes, and they've compounded into a destroyed financial life. A millionaire thinks about this constantly. What am I compounding? Because they know that small daily decisions, when compounded over decades, create dramatically different outcomes. A person who reads one book per year will have completely different knowledge than a person who reads 0 books per year. Over 30 years, that's 30 additional books. That compounds into mastery. A person who exercises every day will have completely different health than a person who never exercises. Over 30 years, that compounds into longevity. A person who invests consistently will have completely different wealth than a person who never invests. Over 30 years, that compounds into financial security. This is the power of the compounding question. Millionaires ask it constantly. What am I compounding? And they choose to compound positive things deliberately. The fifth thought that millionaires think about every single day is this: what is the return on this investment? And they apply this to everything, not just money, everything. If I invest 1 hour in learning this skill, what's my return? If the return is 10 times in increased income, that's a good investment. If I invest $100 in this course, what's my return? If the return is 100 times in increased efficiency, that's a good investment. If I invest 30 minutes in this relationship, what's my return? If the return is a lifelong partnership worth millions, that's a good investment. If I invest 2 hours in this meeting, what's my return? If the return is one new customer worth $50,000, that's a good investment. A millionaire constantly analyzes return on investment. They're not thinking about money only. They're thinking about every investment of time and resources. What's the return? Is it worth the investment? A poor person doesn't think this way. They spend time on activities that have negative return. They spend money on things that depreciate. They invest energy in relationships that drain them. They don't calculate return. A millionaire calculates return on everything: time, money, energy, relationships. Is the return worth the investment? This is why millionaires say no to most opportunities. The return isn't good enough. This is why millionaires say yes to some opportunities. The return is exceptional. This one thought filters all decisions through an ROI lens, and that changes everything. Most people spend money without calculating return. Millionaires calculate return before spending. Most people spend time without calculating return. Millionaires calculate return before spending time. Most people accept opportunities without calculating return. Millionaires calculate return before accepting. This constant ROI analysis creates better decisions. Better decisions compound into better outcomes. Better outcomes compound into wealth. The sixth thought that runs through a millionaire's mind is this: what do I not know? And they ask it humbly. They know they don't know everything. So they're constantly looking for blind spots. What am I missing? What don't I understand? What could I be wrong about? A millionaire is deeply humble about the limits of their knowledge. A poor person is often overconfident about what they know. A millionaire reads constantly, looking for information that contradicts their beliefs. A poor person reads to confirm what they already believe. A millionaire surrounds themselves with people smarter than they are. A poor person surrounds themselves with people who confirm their worldview. A millionaire asks questions and listens carefully. A poor person already knows the answer before the person finishes speaking. This thought, what do I not know, keeps a millionaire in a learning mindset. And learning mindset compounds into increasing competence, and increasing competence compounds into increasing income. A person who thinks, I already know this, stops learning. A person who thinks, what do I not know, never stops learning. Over 30 years, the difference between these two people is stark. One has learned dozens of new skills, understood hundreds of new concepts, integrated thousands of new ideas. The other has been stagnant. Knowledge compounds, understanding compounds, competence compounds. The millionaire mindset knows this. So they ask, what do I not know? Constantly. And this keeps them growing. And growth compounds into different outcomes. Now here's what matters to you right now. These 6 thoughts are running through a millionaire's mind automatically. They don't have to consciously think them anymore. They've practiced so many times that they're automatic. But you can start practicing them today. You don't have to wait until you're wealthy to think like this. In fact, thinking like this is what creates wealth. So here's what to do. Starting today, ask yourself these 6 questions every single day. Morning, afternoon, evening, ask them repeatedly. How can I create value today? Ask this when you wake up. Ask this before every decision. What is the long-term consequence? Ask this before you spend money. Ask this before you spend time. What am I optimizing for? Ask this when you're confused. Ask this when you're choosing between options. What am I compounding? Ask this when you're tempted to skip the gym. Ask this when you're tempted to watch Netflix instead of learning. What is the return on this investment? Ask this before you spend $1. Ask this before you spend 1 minute. What do I not know? Ask this when you think you understand something. Ask this when you want to dismiss an idea. Practice these questions daily. Write them on a card. Say them out loud. Think about them before sleep. What you'll notice is that your decisions start changing, not dramatically on day one, but noticeably within a week. Within a month, your decisions are markedly different. Within a year, your life looks different. Within 5 years, your financial situation is unrecognizable. This is how mindset works. Thoughts create decisions. Decisions create actions. Actions create outcomes. Outcomes create beliefs. Beliefs reinforce thoughts. It's a loop. And you can start the loop today with these 6 thoughts. The millionaire mindset isn't mysterious. It's not genetic. It's not luck. It's these 6 thoughts practiced consistently. And you can start practicing them today, right now. Before the day ends, ask yourself, how can I create value? And see what answer comes. That's the beginning of the millionaire mindset. That's the beginning of a different financial future. But wealth building is built on calculated risks. You have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to lose money on experiments. You have to be willing to look stupid pursuing something that might not work. Employees can't do this because failure feels like getting fired. Third, employees think short term. They think month to month, paycheck to paycheck, quarter to quarter, bonus cycles, year to year, evaluation cycles. But wealth is built over decades. A business might lose money for 3 years before becoming profitable. An employee can't think this way. They need immediate income. Fourth, employees don't understand leverage. They understand trading time for money. But leverage is different. Leverage is using other people's money, other people's time, other people's effort, systems, technology, networks. Employees don't think about these things. So when they do start businesses, they try to do everything themselves. They can't scale because they don't understand leverage. Fifth, employees are taught to optimize for someone else's goals. They're taught to make their boss look good, to make their company successful, but they're not taught to optimize for their own goals. So when given the choice between a safe paycheck or a risky opportunity that could change their life, they take the paycheck because their training says, secure your position. Don't take risks. Keep your job. Here's a concrete example. A software engineer working at a tech company sees a problem that their company isn't solving. They could build a product to solve it. They could charge $50 per month to 1,000 customers. That's $600,000 in annual revenue. Potential to grow to 10,000 customers for $6 million. But the engineer has employee thinking. So they think, that might fail. I might lose money. I might look stupid. I should focus on my job. I get a paycheck. I have benefits. I have security. So they do nothing. Someone else sees the same problem. They build the product. 5 years later, it's a $10 million business. The engineer is still working their job, still secure, still safe, still poor relative to what they could have been. This happens constantly because employee thinking is the majority mindset. So how do you escape employee thinking? How do you transition from trading time for money to building systems that generate income? The first step is awareness. You have to see the trap. Most people never do. They just accept that this is how life works. You work for someone else, you get a paycheck, that's it. But now you know the trap, so you've already taken the first step. The second step is education. You need to understand how business works, how leverage works, how systems work, how you create value. Most schools don't teach this. Your parents probably didn't teach this. So you have to educate yourself, read books about business, study entrepreneurs, learn how companies actually make money. This is the foundation. Third, you need to practice thinking like an owner, even while you have a job. Start asking yourself owner questions. What problems do I see that I could solve? What value could I create? Who would pay for this? How would I deliver this? What leverage could I use? These aren't just theoretical questions. They retrain your brain to see opportunities. After 30 days of asking these questions daily, your brain starts naturally seeing opportunities. Fourth, you need to start small. Don't quit your job and bet everything on a business. That's reckless. Instead, start a side business. Spend 5 hours per week on it. Make your first $100, then your first $1,000, then your first $10,000. This gives you proof that owner thinking works. It builds confidence. It teaches you that you can be responsible for your own income. Most people never do this. They think, if I'm going to do it, I need to commit fully. So they don't do it at all. But small is better than nothing. Small is how you build. Fifth, you need to build skills that create value. Not skills that look good on a resume, but skills that solve real problems. Writing, marketing, sales, product building, problem solving, leadership. These are skills that transfer to business. If you're a developer, learn marketing. If you're in marketing, learn product. If you're in sales, learn operations. Build a diverse skill set that lets you create value across multiple domains. Sixth, you need to develop a network. Most employees don't think about networking for business. They network for jobs. But networks are the most valuable business asset. They're where deals come from. They're where you find partners. They're where you find customers. Spend time building real relationships with people who are thinking about business. Not networking events where you hand out cards, but real relationships. Seventh, you need to change your identity. Stop thinking of yourself as I'm a software engineer or I'm an accountant. Start thinking I'm someone who creates value and solves problems. This subtle shift changes everything. Because now you're open to any opportunity that creates value. You're not locked into a specific identity. You're not limited to problems within your domain. Eighth, you need to take calculated risks, not reckless risks, but calculated risks. Study the risk, understand the downside. Make sure you can afford to lose, then take it. This is where most employees fail. They can't take risks because they're psychologically trained to avoid them, but wealth requires risk. There's no other way. Ninth, you need to think long term. Start thinking in 10-year horizons instead of year to year. Where do I want to be in 10 years? What do I need to build to get there? What risks am I willing to take? What sacrifices am I willing to make? This long-term thinking changes your decision-making. You become willing to lose money short-term if it builds long-term wealth. 10th, you need accountability and environment. Surround yourself with people who think like owners, not employees. The people you spend time with shape your thinking. If everyone around you has employee thinking, you'll stay stuck. If everyone around you is building businesses, thinking about leverage, taking calculated risk, you'll naturally start thinking this way too. Environment is destiny in this regard. Once you make this transition from employee thinking to owner thinking, your life changes fundamentally. And I want you to understand this because it's the real benefit. It's not just money, though money is part of it. First, there's freedom. As an employee, someone else controls your time. Someone else decides your schedule. Someone else decides when you can take vacation. Someone else decides if you have a job. As an owner, you control your time. You might work more initially, but it's your choice. You can take a week off whenever you want. You can take a month off. You can restructure your business to require less time. This freedom is intoxicating. You realize how imprisoned you were as an employee. Second, there's agency. As an employee, you're a victim of circumstances. The company decides to downsize. You're out. The market changes. Your job becomes less valuable. You're stuck. As an owner, you have agency. Things don't go according to plan. You adapt. Market changes. You pivot. You're not a victim. You're an agent in your own life. This is incredibly empowering. Third, there's unlimited upside. As an employee, your income has a ceiling. Even the CEO of a company makes millions, which is awesome, but still limited. As an owner, there's no ceiling. Build a successful business, and you can make $1 million plus annually. Build a very successful business, and you can make $10 million plus. Build an exceptional business, and you can make $100 million plus. The scale isn't limited by your time. It's limited by your execution and the market size. Fourth, there's purpose. As an employee, you're executing someone else's vision. You're helping them achieve their goals. This can feel meaningful, but it's still their vision. As an owner, you're executing your own vision. You're creating something you believe in. You're solving problems you care about. This sense of purpose is profound. It's the difference between working for a mission and having a mission. Fifth, there's wealth. Yes, I saved this for last, but it's real. Owner thinking leads to wealth in a way that employee thinking cannot. Because owners build assets. Assets generate income independent of time. Assets appreciate. Assets can be sold. Owners go from trading time for money to owning systems that generate money. That's the path to actual wealth. Six, there's legacy. As an employee, you work, you retire, you're forgotten. The company continues without you. Your contribution is absorbed into the organization. As an owner, you build something that outlasts you. Your business continues. Your products continue helping people. Your ideas continue influencing people. You leave a legacy. This is profound. The psychological shift from employee thinking to owner thinking isn't just about money. It's about freedom, agency, purpose, and legacy. So here's where we are. I've shown you that employee thinking is a trap. It feels safe in the short term, but it destroys wealth building in the long term. It creates a ceiling. It trains you to optimize for the wrong things. It teaches you to avoid risks. It locks you into an identity that prevents you from seeing opportunities. But I've also shown you that this isn't permanent. You're not stuck in employee thinking forever. You can transition to owner thinking. It requires awareness. It requires education. It requires practice. It requires taking small calculated risks. It requires building skills. It requires patience. But it's doable, and the rewards are enormous. The choice is yours. You can continue thinking like an employee. Keep your job. Get your paycheck. Feel secure. Retire with a modest amount saved. That's a valid choice. There's nothing wrong with it. Many people are happy with that life. But if you want to build actual wealth, if you want freedom, if you want agency over your life, you have to stop thinking like an employee. You have to start thinking like an owner. And you have to start today, not next month, not next year. Today. Today you can ask yourself, what problem could I solve? What value could I create? What small business could I start with 5 hours per week? What skills do I need to learn? What network do I need to build? What small risk could I take? These aren't just questions. They're the beginning of your transition from employee thinking to owner thinking, from trading time for money to building systems that generate wealth, from being stuck to being free. The choice is yours. Choose wisely